All right, we are live. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We're here. Well, first let me introduce myself. I'm so excited. I want to get right into it. So I'm Dr. Patrick Biggs. I'm the flock nutritionist with Purina Animal Nutrition. You've probably seen me on this page talking about chickens before, but we're not necessarily talking about raising chickens today. We're here. I'm joined with Ashley and Jade, who are some super fans of ours. They're going to share their experience. They have chickens, but they have a variety of other animals. And we're going to talk about, kind of what it takes to maybe start your own hobby farm and learn from some of their experiences of raising multiple types of animals on their farm, at their houses, and kind of what that entails. So, I want to give a big shout out because I believe we are also, our Purina Pigs Facebook page is also getting this broadcast today. So, and I know both Ashley and Jade have pigs as well. So they will certainly share some of their experience with that. So, it's a good introduction I've got going here. So why don't we start with Ashley? Why don't you kind of introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your farm, and your Instagram page.
Hi, so I'm Ashley, and I'm from Rise and Shine Mother Cluckers over on Instagram. And we have chickens, we have pigs, we have a rabbit, and we have horses that are all using Purina feed. And it's really the best. I mean, I've noticed such a big difference since I switched them over to Purina. And we've had our farm here. I've farmed most of my life, but we've had in my adult life, I had my own for about 8-9 years since we moved. So yeah, that's about it.
That's great. I will have to say, I love your Instagram page, that Rise and Shine Mother Club. We've been trying for many years to get that put on one of our coop signs.
Yeah.
But they won't let us put it on there for some reason.
Yeah.
But I'm glad somebody is making use of that name.
It's fun. It's fun. It's funny. Yeah. Yes. It's all for fun. So.
Perfect. Jade, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jade. We've been farming since 2018 when we moved to the city. And gosh, yeah, my Instagram is Jade M Block, and we've got just about everything you can ask under the sun outside of, camels or something. We raise emus, horses, pigs, ducks, sheep, geese, goats, dogs, about everything.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, that is great. So we're going to talk about several things today during the broadcast. Some of the topics we're going to cover is how to get started with the hobby farm. How do you introduce new animals, new species to your group and make sure everyone gets along, or if there are certain animals that maybe shouldn't be with other things, we're going to talk about those things. Maybe some lessons that they've learned while starting their hobby farm. And just, some quick tips, some things that they've learned along the way and that they can share with you. So as you're watching this, certainly if you have questions, post those in the comment section. We'll see those, and hopefully we'll address those while we've got our two super fan experts here to kind of share their experience with you. Ask those questions, and then we've got some giveaways that we're going to offer here. The first 10 fans that kind of ask a question related to hobby farms are going to get a Purina swag bag. So as you ask those questions, we've got somebody in the background that's going to watch that, and they'll contact you and get you that. So if you're not able to watch us live, maybe you're watching this after we've broadcasted, and you're watching the replay and you still want a chance to get some of that good stuff, that swag bag, text the word Purina to 38755, and you'll be entered to get that swag bag. So again, the number is 38755, and you're going to text the word Purina to that number. They'll ask you some questions, you fill out the answers, and they'll mail that directly to your house. So again, post those questions in there. All right, we see we've got Sheila's joined us, Lindsay's joined us. Lindsay's got a question here. All right, and then Brittany's got a question that's really specific to chicken. So that's great. So we've got some people asking questions. So That's great. Let's kind of kick this off. I guess I'll start with Ashley. How did you get started with a hobby farm?
So growing up with animals, I knew having kids of my own, I knew that I wanted them to live this lifestyle because there's so many good lessons from it. There's responsibility, taking care of another being, just everything, the good and the bad. And I'm crazy about animals, obsessed with all of them. And it's funny, Jade, you mentioned everything but camels, and I've been begging my husband for a camel.
Nice.
I'm like, come on, I can get a camel and ride the fence and check fence lines on a camel.
I love it.
But yeah, I always knew, and as an adult and starting a family, that I would want my kids to be in this lifestyle and do ag and the whole thing. I just love it.
Perfect. Great. Jade, how did your journey get started?
Yeah, you were like the mom that, I would have killed to have growing up. Not that my mom was. I take that.
No, I know what you mean.
We grew up in the city. We had a small yard. I really wanted a horse for forever. It was the first thing on my Christmas list every year, like every little girl. But I kind of took it a step further, and I started writing to like our local mayor and the governor. And I really wanted to change those zoning laws so that my parents didn't have an excuse not to buy me a horse anymore. So when, finally graduated college, moved out, married my husband, we bought a big property. I don't think anybody was surprised that within the first few years, we just filled it up with everything. And I'm lucky to have a husband who loves animals as much as I do. So we used to work in the zoo industry. We still do construction there, and bringing the zoo home to like our farm has just been like a perfect way to encapsulate all that.
Perfect. That's great. So I see we got lots of questions rolling in here. Look at all those questions. We got some good things. I think we're going to hold off on questions for a little bit, just because as we get through kind of our introduction. Although I guess I did see kind of the next topic I wanted to talk about was introducing new animals or species. And somebody asked, here, let's start with this. Leah Neff has a question. What's a good amount of property for a hobby farm? Jake, how much property do you think you really should have to get started with the hobby farm?
We have 2.5 acres, and it's perfect. We are at capacity right now, and it would have been nice to have something closer to 10. But if you're just starting and you want chickens and goats and you want everything kind of nice and neat and you want like landscaping, it's a lot easier to maintain smaller property. So that's something to keep in mind. We like to.
Yeah. How many different animals do you have? What's your number of animals? Do you have an idea of how many you actually have?
I have the number I have. I don't know. I don't know.
She's got so many she can't count. Ashley, do you have anything to add to that? What's your thought on amount of space?
I think as long as you have a good amount of space for each of them together. I mean, like chickens need their own space. The horses need their own space. The pigs need their own space. We have 165 acres, but we really only utilize probably 5, I would say. The rest is just bare ground, and we let the horses just go out and do their thing. But as long as the animals have enough room separately,
I think that about being separate. I think a lot of people, a lot of the questions I get are, can I keep goats and sheep together? Or can I keep horses with my dogs? Or will donkeys guard this? And a lot of the times every animal needs like such a separate set of nutritional, goals and space goals and coop goals and housing goals. And so you really do need all separate spaces.
Yes.
Right? So let me ask you what animal did you start with, and then maybe how that progressed?
We started with chickens. My husband had chickens in college, and when we lived in the city, he was all about getting 3 chickens, and like the joke's on him now, but within a year, we had filled our like chicken capacity in the city, which was 6 hens and no roosters. And I had 9 hens. And we knew that our next door neighbor was going to call the city very soon.
Yeah.
We had to get out of there.
That's great. Ashley, anything to add to that?
Yeah. In my adult life, I started with chickens first, and then it escalated quickly.
Right. I know we've always joked that chickens are certainly the gateway animal to get you started on here.
They are.
And then what? So chickens. Then maybe what was next?
For me, well, the rabbit is our daughters, and then the horses. Once we moved here and had more ground, we got the horses, and then the ducks came. Dogs, cats. I mean,
yeah,
whatever.
Is the rabbit? Is that a house rabbit, or does it live outside as well?
No, he's out. He's got a huge hutch. It's ridiculous. My husband overbuilds everything. It's kind of funny. It's like a fortress for the rabbit.
Right. Perfect. That's great. All right. So maybe Jade, when do you? Somebody asked a question in here. Lindsay, looks like Rizio, asked, how do you know when it's a good time to add a new kind of animal? When do you decide you've built that comfort level? You're successful at raising, your chickens. How do you move on to a goat or a pig or a horse? How do you make that decision?
It's really easy to say that you should mentor with someone or go visit a farm or go take care of or lease something for a little while. But to be honest, it just falls into your lap. When we bought the property in the first place, the people that were moving out had sheep that they didn't want to take with them. So, you just get the sheep and then you learn how to take care of sheep. So a lot of that is definitely on the job training. And I think if you're observant enough and you're talking with your vet and you really, you've got the books and you care about learning about an animal, it comes really quickly. And you learn, okay, goats are ruminants. And then you start to learn about ruminants. And then, okay, what are some other ruminants that we can bring home to the farm, that I can learn from? And so you start building on your own knowledge in a really amazing way.
Yeah. All right. Ashley, anything to add on top of that? When do you decide you're ready to move on and try a new animal?
I don't know. My biggest thing is, as long as you're set up for it and you have the space and you have the shelters they need and you have everything good to go and the funds to add another animal, because vet bills aren't cheap, and to be responsible, you have to take care of your animals. And I think that's my biggest thing, is the responsibility of knowing, okay, I can take on another life, or, it's not cheap, and different feed and different everything. So as long as you're set up and you're prepared for it, then yeah, go for it.
Yeah. How much, do you have any idea of how much feed you go through in a month or a year?
Oh man, I don't know. Our shop is always full of empty feed bags. I don't know if my husband's watching. No, I don't know.
We don't want to incriminate anyone. But it's usually those. Typically, it's you're gonna go through a lot of feed when you have all of those different animals. So you're gonna get to know your feed dealer very well.
Yeah. I'd say for the chickens alone, and I don't even know how many I have. Maybe 50 to 60, maybe. And then the ducks do flock raiser. So we probably go through 5 bags a month for them. Maybe, gosh, I really don't know.
That's about right. An adult chicken, it takes about 30 adult chickens to go through a ton of feed a year.
Okay.
And I think one horse, I think the number's around 900 to 1,000 pounds. 1,000-pound horse will eat about a ton of feed a year as well. I'm not sure what some of the other animals. Jay, do you have any idea how much feed you go through in a time period?
About a bag of chicken food a week. We don't have as many chickens as Ashley. And pig food lasts a long time because we have 2 potbellies. And potbellies aren't supposed to eat as much as people think they do. So they get a nice little ration of pig food. It lasts them quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we are broadcasting on the Purina Pigs page. And I see Jacqueline Hilbert has asked a question. She says she'd love to add pigs to her farm, but they're stalling. They're a little nervous. They have a herd of cattle and they have some chickens. So it sounds like Jacqueline has some experience of raising some animals. So it's not a big leap to try pigs. Kind of what's been your experience? Is it hard to start with pigs? How difficult, how easy are they to raise? Kind of where are the challenging points when raising pigs?
Ashley?
I was just going to say, Jade, you're up.
Pigs are interesting. They're so smart, and they love having a friend. So we have the 2 potbelly gals together. And one thing that really put pressure on us quickly was they don't root very much, not as much as other types of pigs, but they do root a lot, and they're hard on fencing. So fencing was really big. We don't electrify anything here, so it's all like horse fencing, and they can kind of get under it. They can push 4x4s pretty far. So the people that were here before had some like rocks stacked in a corner to keep their goats on a certain side, and the pigs just blew that right over. It didn't even matter. So bored pigs are destructive pigs. It's important to keep them really busy. And that was really fun for us because we had an animal that like really was genuinely engaged and interested and liked working with enrichment. But yeah, they can be really hard on fencing. That was our lesson.
Okay. All right.
So we have, right now we have 4 of the little coons, and then we also have 3 4-H project pigs. The coons are very easy. They're easy on the fences. We just have hog panels up. The only problem we had was a lot of flooding in the barn this winter. And so I spent hundreds of dollars on shavings, and I had to clean out their entire bedding every other day. It seemed like just keeping them warm in the winter time. I mean, they're super easy, really. Yeah. I don't know.
All right. And then I know, Jade, you just mentioned that some people, they had goats. Do either of you have goats? You have goats? Just Jade? All right. Well, I see.
I don't have goats.
Ashley doesn't have goats
for me.
So I see Nicole Bennett Allen asked a question about raising goats. She wanted to know what are kind of some of the things that she should think about when she's preparing for goats, and then kind of how do those goats get along with chickens or some of the other animals.
For goats, fencing was really important for us. Goats also don't like getting wet. So having a big enough barn for all the goats to sleep in, they will run from the rain. They don't like rain at all. And then it was really important to, when it comes to chickens, the goats get into the chicken feed. So keep chicken food away from goats was really important, and fencing. Mm-hmm. Those are all would bubble in my mind if someone was asking.
All right. Kind of, I guess, when you bring new animals on, kind of how do you introduce maybe them to the farm? Maybe first start with how do you introduce them maybe to that specific species, and then maybe if you let your animals kind of interact, how do you kind of introduce them to the other animals that are out there? Ashley, anything from you?
Yeah. So one thing I learned was when we added ducks, I put an Instagram poll up and asked people if they kept their ducks together with their chickens or not, and what the deal was. And most people said they keep them together. For me, that was no good. They're totally different. I would never ever recommend that to anybody, to be honest. The ducks are they put off so much moisture, and my chickens ended up getting frostbite, and it was no good. So I would say keeping everybody separate, but if they all during the day want to be out together, that's fine. If you put up the feed so the pigs don't eat everything in sight, and it can get chaotic really quick.
Yeah. So do you let your animals interact with each other? So do the chickens and the pigs and the horses and the goats and everything, do they get a chance to kind of interact with each other?
Yeah, mine do. Yeah, in kind of a controlled way. I have separate spaces for everybody.
Right.
I'm a big believer in that. But yeah, during the day, the pigs are like dogs. They just go wherever they want, and so yeah, it's fun.
Do you find any personality disagreements as those animals interact with each other? Do you see any kind of commonly, do the pigs pick on the goats or the horses pick on the chickens, or is there something like that you see?
I really don't. Mine all get along pretty well. Yeah, I really don't have that.
Yeah.
But Jade, you're
Oh yeah, we do. Our pigs are no contact. Nobody is allowed to be in with pigs except humans. Our pigs are bullies. Goats will eat emu feathers. Donkeys don't like the dogs. So there's all, like you said, it's chaos, and it's all like in our heads all the time, right? So when those things are kind of swirling around, but yeah, our pigs are probably the big bullies on the farm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something you're going to find, that the personalities of your animals, certainly they differ just like humans do, that some of us don't get along with others very well, and others are just going to be everyone's friend. So a lot of that, there's a lot of kind of play it by ear and see what happens, and kind of take it slowly, see how everybody interacts. And if you've got awful pigs, then maybe the pigs just don't get to play with the other animals. I know I have a buddy who also has cows and chickens, and he finds his chickens right back to the cows often. He goes out there and the chickens are just sitting up on the backs of the cows. So you're going to find interaction to have all of these various animals. All right, let's see. Lessons that you guys have learned by having these farms. Anything that you picked up?
My biggest one is the ducks with the chickens.
Yeah, I will say too, you're going to find, the ducks are going to be messier. And I will say, if you do have drakes, the male ducks, they are going to try and mate with your hens. And the body parts don't quite match up. And the ducks, those male ducks can actually kind of tear apart the inside of those chickens, which, is not going to be well for her. And, it's pretty much the end of her. So if you do have male ducks, you might want to be careful allowing them to interact with the female chickens, because that's not going to end too well for them. So there are some things to watch out for. And you may find too that the ducks may kind of tend to stick to their own kind too. And they kind of wander off in groups as well. Yeah. You see that often. The chickens kind of hang out together. The ducks hang out together. They kind of all hang out with their own species.
Yeah. I think it's a friend for that reason. They always hang out with their conspecifics. Even if it's a mixed group of animals, the species will always connect up.
Right. Yeah, there's something about that familiarity, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what else have we got. We've got lots of chicken questions in here. Does anybody, what's maybe your favorite breed of chicken? I see Carissa's asking that question. Do you have a favorite breed of chicken?
Barred Rocks.
Yeah. All right. Ashley, or something, you?
Well, I don't know that it's a specific breed per se, but olive eggers.
Okay.
Only because of the eggs.
Yeah.
I love English, but I don't have any.
Yeah. All right. We have some Old English game chickens at our research farm here in Gray Summit, and I actually find of the birds that we have at our farm, they're the most inquisitive. they're tiny little things. They're
Yeah.
itty little things, but the group that we have is very curious, and they'll follow you around. And we don't interact with our birds a whole lot here at the farm because we are a research farm, But when we go into the coops, they're kind of all right there checking out what we're doing. I've done some Facebook Lives on there. They jump on the camera, they jump on the tripod. I know we've been pointing at things, and all of a sudden the bird flies over and lands on your arm. So I find those birds are very interesting, and they're super tiny birds. They're great. Let's see what else we got going on in here. Crystal X-Line says she's getting a camel soon. So all right.
Lucky.
Oh, we got somebody's jealous. All right. Yes. Yeah, and one of the things, Ashley, you said too about keeping your chickens and ducks separate is certainly something that is important. Especially when you have multiple birds. Everyone wants to treat their birds as the same, but the requirements for birds do vary.
Yes.
Chickens, ducks, turkeys. Pheasants, quail, guineas. We can't always feed the same. To buy more feed, you can't always just feed one product to everybody. And so,
yes.
It's certainly important that you get out there and you're feeding the animals the appropriate feed for them, and not trying to just get one product that you can feed to everything.
Yes.
There are some all flock or all species products that are out there that are kind of, people try to feed to everything, but it's one of those things that's kind of, you're trying to cover everything, but then you're not doing any one thing really well. Somebody's always suffering. So, certainly make sure that you're feeding those birds appropriately, and the right thing. So that's always a good thing. And you mentioned, making sure that, the pigs aren't eating all of the feed. Sometimes, especially if you're using medicated feeds, that not everything should be eaten by all animals, and what the horses eat might not necessarily be great for the pigs, and kind of vice versa. You put a bunch of cows on chicken feed, and they're not going to like all that starch in their diet, and that's going to cause some bloat, cause some other issues, and so on and so forth. So trying to keep everyone to eat the right feed can certainly be a challenge.
Yeah, and the cows will like the chicken feed, but you won't like that the cows like the chicken feed.
Right. They will annihilate that chicken feed, and they're going to go through a whole lot more than you do. So it's certainly going to get more expensive putting that large animal in front of your chicken feed.
Yeah.
What might be some tips that you have for the viewers on maybe starting your own hobby farm?
Fences first. Fences first. Perimeter fence, pasture fence, fences first. There's no way around it.
All right.
I think just doing your research, making sure you're as prepared as you can be, and talking to a vet, about certain things, questions, and not just asking anybody, because what might work for some people might not work for others. So I think just doing your correct research and being responsible about it. I can't stress that enough, because the animals depend on you,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So just being responsible and doing your research.
Okay. Let's see, what other questions do we have? I guess what's been maybe something that you've encountered that's been, I guess, interesting that you learned by having all of these different animals, or maybe something you're at yard, how animals interacted with each other? Have you seen any interesting stories to share?
Everything, obviously you learn so much. The donkeys have been one that have been really fun to learn about for me personally. But as far as interactions, I think one of the more complicated parts for us has been predator relationships, and paying attention to how we can protect our flock from eagles or coyotes and that kind of thing. And so that can be really complicated and challenging. You want to hold your wildlife and protect your flock at the same time. But that's one of the things that I've really been enjoying, and one of the things that I keep learning about.
Yeah. All right. Ashley, anything that you can think of?
No.
No. All right.
No.
All right. Well, then I want to go. I'll go back to Jade. It looks like maybe Valerie Washburn. She had a question. Looks like maybe she talked to you maybe earlier, even today, about kind of what keeps you going when times get hard on the farm. I guess she loved the answer that you gave her earlier, and she, I guess, wants you to share it with this group too.
She asked what keeps me going, and I just said that sometimes you don't go, sometimes you stop, sometimes you have a really, really hard day, and you do the bare minimum, and you go cry your eyes out somewhere. Sometimes you lose broods of chicks in your brooder. Sometimes, you know, your horse gets an injury, or something is sick or ill or hurt, or a predator gets it. And I think, especially on Instagram and on social media, there are a lot of farm accounts with really beautiful barns and chandeliers, and that they feed their chickens all the best feeds, and they, you know, everything is so carefully constructed. And I think giving yourself permission to have a bad day on the farm is really important, because they do happen. And I think people need to talk about it a little more, and just be honest that, you know, we've all had situations like that. This weekend, I lost 2 turkeys in a brooder, and I was so excited about having these 2 turkeys added to my flock, and we just lost them. They crashed, and it was a bad day, and it happens. And so I wanted to share that specifically on Instagram, because I think that's really important.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's really hard, because some of the Instagram or social media in general, you know, everybody shows their best, and it's not always rainbow eggs and butterflies. There's a lot of hard things that come with this whole farm life, and it's hard to, I try to be as real and as honest as I can on there without coming across being negative about certain things, because it's hard. It's not easy. It's not perfect. The coop doesn't look perfect all the time. You're going to be covered in poop. You're going to have it in your hair. You're going to have it everywhere. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? It's not perfect.
You're going to get dirty.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think the transparency is very, very, very important, to show all sides of it, not just, oh, look, I got this amazing olive egg, I got this speckled egg. You know, there's so much more to it than that. And that comes back to the responsibility part of, there's a lot more responsibility than just what you see on social media, to put it nicely.
Right. And yeah, you certainly bring up a good point, that kind of the darker side of raising all of these animals is you are going to get dirty. You're going to have to deal with some messy situations. And yes. I guess, how do you deal with the manure and all of that, the mess? Kind of how do you kind of deal with it? Do you compost all of it? Do you dispose of it? How do you deal with that?
We compost.
Jade?
We compost.
You compost?
Yeah, we've got a really big, kind of a property that's not been cared for very well in the past. It's really dry. Our runoff, you know, we've got a lot of erosion issues. And once I realized how valuable that compost is, it is like I'm skipping over to the manure every morning to go put it in that compost pile. But we compost everything: chicken bedding, horse manure, everything.
Okay. Yeah. Ashley, you compost as well, or?
Yeah, so we have a huge outdoor garden space that we're working on, and the ground here is where I live in Eastern Oregon is not great. So we've been putting everything there and spreading it out with the tractor. Everything except for the pig manure, I don't put that over there, but everything else goes over there.
Okay.
But keeping up on it, I mean, I try to clean everything. I try to keep up on it, you know, every day, every other day, because dirty pins are not good for anybody,
right.
Especially.
Right. And if you start looking at it over a long period of time, like I know with chickens, an adult chicken is going to produce about 50 pounds of manure every year. So as you start growing 50 chickens times 50 pounds of manure, that's just from chickens.
Yeah.
As the animal gets bigger, that pile also gets bigger. So it's certainly a lot of crap, if you will, that you have to deal with when you have all of these various animals. I see Sheila had a good question here I wanted to talk about. It's kind of biosecurity issues. When you're bringing new animals in, do you separate them? Kind of how long, and then that integration process. I mean, one of the questions I always get when I have chicken talks is kind of how do you introduce new birds to your flock? Kind of what steps do you take as you introduce your new animals? Kind of how long do you separate them before you introduce them, and kind of what's your process for that transition integration period?
Yeah, quarantine's important. Keeping them separated, especially if you're bringing adult animals home from an auction or somewhere like that. Usually if I'm buying chickens from the same area, I'll put them in together, like the same farm store, I can get a few chicks from different bins and put those together. Usually I don't worry about that, but adult chickens and other animals usually I'll quarantine for at least a month. And then we'll howdy them in a pen that's right next to where our adults are. So in the coop at night, we'll use like a big dog kennel. And we put all our new chickens into the dog kennel overnight, and in the morning, everybody free ranges together. At night, we chase everyone back in. We separate the new guys back into the dog kennel, and then during the day, we'll go back around again. So that's our.
Yeah, Ashley.
Yeah, kind of similar. I really when I initially started out with one pig, and then I got 3 shortly after that. So they were separated. And then I did about 2 weeks just to make sure no one was sick or anything. And everybody got along pretty good. With the chickens, I kind of do something similar. I keep the smaller, younger ones in a big dog crate, and I'll either put it in the run or next to the run so they can kind of see, because chickens are brutal. They're mean.
Yes, they are mean. It's interesting, as adorable as they can be at times. They certainly don't necessarily like other chickens a lot of times, so they can be aggressive.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, the key things here, we want to make sure we're feeding the right animals the right feed, and then the right age group the right feed. So always make sure you're feeding that right. Let's see, I have a couple of hens with some hatched out chicks that are separated from their laying hens. What would be the best? All right, so if you are letting your mother hens raise their own chicks, obviously separating that group of birds from the rest of your flock is a good idea, just because the other hens may not necessarily appreciate those smaller birds there. But flock raiser is probably the best feed to make sure that that mother hen's getting the nutrition that she needs to stay healthy, and those young birds are getting the nutrition that they need to grow and develop. You could probably feed starter feed to those birds, but you don't want to feed the medicated feed to those birds. So the adults shouldn't be eating medicated feed, so we want to keep that separate. So that's why flock raiser is really kind of good. It kind of meets everybody's requirements and gets those birds going. Gets them from starting to that laying phase. And then kind of once mom has decided that she no longer needs to tend the chicken so much, you can start integrating her back with the regular flock and get her back on layer feed. And then she'll hopefully return to egg production, within a few weeks of doing that. All right. I think that's kind of wraps up what we had to talk about today. I certainly want to say a big thanks to my super fans, Ashley and Jade, for joining us. We've got lots of questions, so we're going to get those out. If you don't get a swag bag, text Purina to 38755, and we'll get you one of those swag bags as well. So certainly take advantage of that. Jade, Ashley, I certainly appreciate the information that you shared with us. I'm sure we'll probably be back sharing more information as we go along on everyone's journey about raising all of these animals and what it takes to maintain a hobby farm. So again, thanks everyone for joining us today. We appreciate what you're doing. Check out our page. I'll let you guys plug your Instagram pages so they know where to find you.
I'm
Rise and Shine Mother Cluckers.
Ashley, Rise and Shine Mother Cluckers, and Jade.
Jade M Block. It's pretty
There
easy.
you go. Perfect. Jade M Block. All right, you're going to find them out there. So I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day and joining us and answering some of these questions. So with that,
Thanks for having us. It's been really
yes, of course. Anytime. So everybody, enjoy your day, and we'll see you next time.